AC, we are continuing our escape from Hammerland, just as we are escaping July 2025. I can't believe the year is more than half over.
I know, I know.
Oh, and as we talk about, I mean, I'm starting to have regrets
Uh-oh.
about ending this series. We got to find something else that is chock full of Hammer goodness, or something akin to that, because the further we go along in this fond farewell, the less fond I am of saying farewell.
Yeah, I knew that would be the case, which is why I tried to get some good ones. And again, there's plenty of Hammer that ain't so hot, um, but I was trying to close us out with a bang. So I'm glad to hear. It sounds like you had a good positive experience with this one.
Paranoiac from 1963. And how can I not, featuring the Mount Rushmore of Hammer? I mean, there should probably be an English equivalent to that, in all fairness. But we've got Freddie Francis directing, Jimmy Sangster on script, and producer Anthony Hinds. I mean, you really can't go wrong. And Oliver Reed playing sort of a main character. I mean, this is one of those rare films that is balanced between a trio of actors, almost
Mhm.
a quartet. And it has so many different layers to it that I could not believe it was only an hour and 20 minutes long. It felt longer, but in a good way. And it makes me wonder, has this been remade? If not,
I
why
don't think
not?
so. I don't think so. Yeah.
It's, you know, it, I think it's safe to remake this because A, it's black and white, B, it's very old. So those are two criteria. No one's going to go back and say, hey, this movie is ripping off Paranoiac and I already know the twist. Or should I say twist? This is one of the most topsy-turvy surprise after surprise after surprise, but it doesn't feel contrived movies I have ever seen.
Well, and you think that you know what the twist might be, and then you're kind of like, okay, I see. Oh, we're not going there. Okay, we're going some. Okay. Oh, okay. And I like how the reveals just keep coming. As you say, the performances are all really strong. The direction is really terrific. I mean, this is Freddie Francis, one of his first times behind the camera as a director. He's a renowned cinematographer and camera operator. He worked on some of the hugest films. In fact, just 2 years before, he worked on The Innocents with Jack Clayton. He was the cinematographer for that. And we all remember how great that one looked. And as I'm watching this one, I'm thinking you got Arthur Grant as your cinematographer, and you've got Freddie Francis as your director. I mean, of course, it's going to look fantastic. And I think the camera movements and the placement and the framing, it's just all really top notch. I really dug this one. And again, I think Jimmy Sangster's script is apparently it's based on a source material on a novel. But in doing some research, it sounds like they went so far afield, as is Sangster's want, that they almost didn't even bother getting the rights because they're like, this isn't even close to the same thing. But they erred on the side of caution and did credit the author, whose name is eluding me at the moment. But yes, I'm actually curious to check out the novel to see, where that one went. If Sangster's script did not adhere to it.
Maybe they only had one twist instead of 16. Um, but you mentioned The Innocents. I mean, we talked about that previously on the show. Another film this reminded me of, in a weird way, was Repulsion.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Repulsion, The Innocents, and then Paranoiac is a great triple feature, all dealing with kind of similar things. You've got like weird happenings with children. You've got a female protagonist who believes she's going insane and just might be,
Yep.
all sorts of like shady, despicable guys in her life. It really is kind of a marvel. Now, if you would be so kind, can you describe that? What, folks, we're going to get into full spoilers, and I'll put up the banner when that happens. But high level synopsis,
Sure.
AC. If you can give one without spoilers, here's the challenge. So it might be half a sentence long, and then we'll get into it. But I'll leave it to you, sir.
Well, we have the Ashby family, which is comprised of Simon Ashby, which is Oliver Reed, and Eleanor Ashby, who was played by Janette Scott. And then you have Aunt Harriet, who is played by Sheila Burrell. And the film opens as they're honoring the death of their parents. And Simon is about to come into the inheritance. And Eleanor seems to be losing her marbles because she is starting to see, around the fringes of her life, her long lost brother Simon. Nope, sorry, long lost brother Tony. And because he died, he apparently killed himself 15 years ago. And so to see him showing up in the church or on the cliffs or anywhere that other than the graveyard is surprising to her. And so she, again, is starting to think that she's losing her marbles. Simon is doing nothing to dissuade that, because it would behoove him greatly if she were to get carried off to the local asylum, because then he would come into all of her money. Because as we quickly learn, Simon's a bit of a wastrel. He likes drinking and driving and doing them together often.
Well, I want to correct the record a bit. You said
Okay,
you said that Tony allegedly died 11 years ago, or 15 years ago. What happened was he was 15 when he died. His parents died 11 years ago. He allegedly committed suicide 8 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So it was
My math's all terrible.
When he was 15. I mean, but this is important because the film opens up and it's already kind of messing with us, because we see this sarcophagus or something. It's inscribed outside the church with the mother and father, and then you turn the corner and then you see Antony.
Right.
And then the priest, as he's giving this kind of a sermon, talks about how the three of them died in kind of close succession. So you're like, oh, were they all in a car accident together? Was the like a young child or something? But no, these layers get revealed to us as to, the parents died, and then the young son, who I guess would be the middle child, overcome with grief,
Right.
threw himself off a cliff. Left a note, but there was no body recovered because those cliffs are pretty severe. But I want to just take a moment, and this is something else. I don't think this movie has been remade. I haven't seen it, or at least this plot I haven't seen done like this. But I've also not seen a more perfect sort of, exposition dump delivered so smoothly. As you know, exposition dumps are when two characters, for the benefit only of the audience and not the characters in the reality of the scene that they're in, will say, as you know, it was 35 years ago, this week that, we lost our mother. It's like, yeah, you don't have to put it like that, you weirdo. But in this case, it's a priest giving a sermon on you get the feeling that it's a mass that is being dedicated to this family who died, 11 years ago, this mother and father, going through what happened. And also the camera is showing us all the players in the various parts of the church. Mm-hmm. You've got, Aunt Harriet, you've got Eleanor, who the scene ends with her looking over her shoulder and seeing who we come to imagine as her vision of Tony standing in the church. We don't even see what she sees. She just faints. And we see Simon playing the organ up in the balcony, which is brilliant foreshadowing considering where this movie goes. It's a great setup, and it gives you all the information you need to dive into this twisted family as a great, starting point, because it gets so twisty and crazy that you have to lay everything. You have to completely set the table so that someone else can come and overturn it and then put it right up again, and then overturn it and then put it right up again and then overturn it and then throw it out the window.
And like any good thriller, and I mean good thriller, you never get lost. You're always able to follow the thread. There was never a moment where I was like, wait, who is that again? And what happened there? Like, Sangster lays it out really well. And again, the performers are all so solid. I was surprised, like Janette Scott gets top billing. And I knew her from Day of the Triffids. She was also in The Old Dark House with Hammer the same year, which we talked about earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
And like, her name is like Janette Scott, and then also Oliver Reed. And I was kind of surprised at that, because Oliver Reed had done Curse of the Werewolf 1961, so a couple of years earlier, and was quite the sensation in that role. So I was surprised that they weren't getting like billing together, considering how much a name, especially with Hammer, he had become.
Well, hold on. I was going to ask you a question, but I kind of have to jump and put on the spoiler banner. So,
okay.
Folks, if you're just listening to this, we are in spoiler territory officially. So let me ask you this. The actor who plays quote unquote Tony is how I'll refer to him.
Yes.
Alexander Davion. Was he a name at this point?
I don't know that name at all. So I think he's a very capable actor, but I had never heard of him before. And likewise, I don't know who Sheila Burrell. I need to look at her filmography. She plays Aunt Harriet because I think she's terrific. Great character face. Yeah. So I was kind of just looking at the cast list and going, I don't know why Janette Scott is such a big deal. Like I was looking at her filmography, I'm kind of like, I don't know what her main claim to fame is. And Oliver Reed obviously becomes a major international superstar in a few years. But you know, he's kind of treated as literally second billing. So yeah, it was an interesting just kind of watching like the names that are most familiar were the ones that Hammer fans will be familiar with, you know, our editor and our production designer and composer, etc.
Well, because I'm wondering about how much of that was a sort of almost a publicity decision,
Mm-hmm.
because by all rights, those three actors should have had top billing. You know, because it really is a three-person piece, and then Aunt Harriet is sort of in the periphery. She's an important character, but she doesn't have as much to do, I don't think, as our three.
Right.
I think putting Eleanor Ashby, Janette Scott, up top might be a reaction in some case to Psycho,
Mm.
in the idea because that had come out 3 years earlier,
And this
and
is
it was
certainly inspired by Psycho, this whole string of black and white thrillers that Hammer was doing.
right. I mean, down to even the titles that begin with a P, but just the idea of drawing the audience in the opening credits, saying, "Oh, this is going to be a movie about her kind of going insane." I forgot what year was Repulsion.
Repulsion was 65.
Okay, so that's still a couple of years off. So it's
Yep.
not quite the same thing. I thought maybe they were sort of playing around with that as well. But the idea of luring the audience in to say, okay, something's going on with this family. You know, Eleanor is seeing things. Maybe it's a ghost story. Who knows? That this is really going to be her story, and in a way it is, but through the course of the movie it becomes less about her story and more about the guy who's swooping in to try and save her from this demented family plot, which I appreciate. I don't know exactly how I would change it, but I haven't quite seen a character, this isn't a criticism, but diminished from the central focus of the story from the beginning of the film to the end in a
Agreed.
way that doesn't feel like she got knocked down a bunch of stairs. It works, but it's still strange.
No, agreed, agreed. And I think it's a nice misdirect. Um, but the focus does consistently keep shifting as to whose story we're following. And we learn more about, you know, Tony. We learn more about Simon, you know, but we're not necessarily following a single character and seeing the film through their eyes. We get all sorts of viewpoints.
Right. And you know what's also interesting is that the Tony character, it gets very confusing trying to write notes, particularly towards the end of this film, because the Tony character turns out to not be the actor shows up middle of the film, I'll call it, uh, claiming to be Tony, his character, I should say. And he claims that he never committed suicide. He left a suicide note, but he had run away secretly in order to get away from Aunt Harriet because he didn't like the way she was running the house and treating the family. His return causes all sorts of problems for everybody involved because Simon is 3 weeks away, I think, from inheriting the £500,000 family fortune, which is a really big deal in 1962, 63. And he's in the process of trying to convince Eleanor that she's going crazy so he can have her committed so he can get all of the money.
Right.
And I don't know if I never quite got if he was going to split it with Aunt Harriet or if there was some kind of, if she was okay enough to just, I don't need your money. This is all your deal. What was your take on that?
Well, I honestly, I feel like Aunt Harriet has a vested interest in Simon. I don't know if it's the money. I don't know. I mean, I get the sense that she's been the guardian of the estate. So she's clearly been living well
Yeah.
on her sister or brothers. I'm not sure who she's related to, money. But yeah, there's also, I mean, it feels like there's an unhealthy attachment to Simon. I was kind of like, what's going on there?
Well, particularly And I gotta bring it up. I got some real Mrs. Voorhees vibes towards the end of this
Mm,
towards the end of this film, because I kept forgetting. Wait, that's not Simon's mother,
right, right.
um, or is it?
Well, and like when you first see, there's this mystery going on. I had this whole feeling because we're talking spoilers. I'm like, wait, was Simon actually Tony? And there was a switcheroo at some point. Like I was thinking that's because I hadn't seen this one in a while, so I was glad to revisit it. But there was a part of me that's going, that's going to be the reveal is that Simon is actually Tony, and that's how they know that this guy isn't Tony.
Well, here's another. We're flying way out into the realm of fan fiction here and speculation. Mary and John, those were the parents who died. It turns out to be a plane crash. What if Mary? I don't know how you do this, covering it up, but Mary and Harriet were sisters.
Hmm.
And then maybe Harriet was having an affair with John that ended up in, I don't know, some kind of a child, which would be Simon. I don't know how you play around with this. Maybe it was revealed that Simon was adopted or something like that.
Right, right.
There's all these different ways you can play it. But to get back to what we were talking about with Harriet having a really weird attachment to Simon that's never quite resolved as to why. Maybe it's because she's afraid that he is going to literally drink away the family fortune. And maybe there's some kind of a business that she, to your point, is doing well off of. But if
Right.
he screws that up, then the gravy train stops.
Yeah. Well, she needs to keep an eye on him for sure, for a variety of reasons.
Yeah. One of which is the family name, which he is in big danger of destroying. So there's a nurse, Nurse Francoise, who is played by the lovely Lillian Bruce.
Hmm.
Um, and she is taking care of Eleanor. She consoles her at the church. She, kind of counsels her, but she's also kind of, I get the feeling, nudging her towards that old padded cell. It turns out it's because this is twist number 1, 2, 3. I don't know. I can't keep track. She's sleeping with Simon. So she is an agent of his plan to discredit and institutionalize his sister to get all the money. Tony shows up. He sees Eleanor on the cliffs, the same cliffs that he allegedly threw himself off of. She falls into the water, and he brings her back to the house. And the house servant recognizes him. Francoise doesn't, because she's newer to this whole scene. Aunt Harriet certainly recognizes him. So, and then Simon almost runs him over with a car practically. So him coming back into the picture poses all sorts of problems for the various schemes that are going on. And I love that, because there was a part of me getting back into the speculation. I'm like, well, what if this is a ghost coming back to protect Eleanor from the people that are trying to destroy the family? And it's revealed, later on. This movie constantly kept me on my toes. But then there's another twist to the identity of Tony, and I'll leave that to you, AC, to talk about, because I've been rambling.
Okay. Well, no. I wasn't sure if we were going to reveal, but yeah, it turns out that Tony is not actually Tony. That he is an imposter who's been hired by the family's solicitor's son, who's also part of the family business. And I'm not quite sure what the scheme was there. That like they were just in cahoots together and they were going to split the inheritance.
I think that's what it was, because there's a conversation. Keith is the name of the slimeball who set this up and hired quote unquote Tony to be part of it.
Right.
Because they're having a conversation as Tony starts to have second thoughts, because he's been sent into this family as a plant, but he starts falling for Eleanor, which is really twisted because they're supposed to be brother and sister.
Right.
So he goes back to Keith and he says, look, I don't know about this. I'm getting cold feet. And he's like, well, you're part of the deal is you're going to get 1,000 quid or so. It sounds like $1,000 a week for a certain amount of time. Or maybe it's 100,000. I can't remember, but it sounds like it's $1,000 a week to pull this off. If he gets it, that's his take home pay. And then Keith would probably get the rest, which I imagine is a considerably larger chunk.
Right.
And then they're kind of talking to each other, and they're tiptoeing around selling each other out. He says, "What you can get, 3 to 5 years for fraud." Oh yeah, what can you get for stealing £500,000? About 3 to 5 years.
Right,
So it's this
right.
great stalemate going back to Sangster's script.
But yeah, I thought, and again, as you say, there's a lot of twists, and you're following again. He lays it out. The signposts are great, but there's also just some really great imagery throughout. That shot of the cliffs and looking down onto them. There's a great sequence where, because Simon, again, not convinced that this guy is in fact Tony, for reasons that he's well aware. It's like, well, I know that's not Tony because I know where Tony is. But he tries to do away with him via cutting the brake lines on the car. And I thought that sequence was really, really well done. Again, credit to Freddie Francis and Arthur Grant, our cinematographer. But yeah, there's just a lot of like wonderful sequences throughout, and they all thread together into a really solid feature. This was, again, one of Hammer was very much on the black and white thriller train, as a lot of folks were following Psycho. This was, we talked about Scream of Fear earlier in the series, and that was kind of the first of theirs. But there was also Maniac. There was this film. There was The Snorkel. There was Hysteria, Crescendo, Die, Die, My Darling, Nightmare. There was a ton of them that I wanted to choose from. And I'm like, well, let's go with Paranoiac, because I just remember Oliver Reed's performance being rather flamboyant, and nothing is more fun than watching Oliver Reed shout at people, which he does often.
We'll get back to that in a second, but I gotta ask, Snorkel?
The Snorkel it's a great little thriller. I think I'm going to give you the basic scenario, but there is stuff happening in the floorboards of a house, and there's somebody who uses a snorkel to, breathe. And that's all you need to know.
The moment you said it, the tagline popped into my head. The
Uh-oh.
Snorkel, you won't come up for air. Now I got to see this movie.
You do. It's again, it's a silly title for a really good movie.
Wow. All right. Yeah, it has to be good to survive a title like that. I mean, come on.
Well, and because I think of that, it didn't really get a lot of play. You have to really kind of want to seek it out. But as any good Hammerhead does, I'm a completist at heart, and I did finally find it, and I was like, wow, this is really good. And I'm sorry it doesn't get seen or talked about more.
Well, we're going to circle back to Oliver Reed, but I do want to zero in on that scene involving the car, because we see Simon kind of tinker around under the hood, and we know he's up to no good because he's taking things out of the out of it.
Things that belong in the car are no longer in the car.
Right. But next we cut to Tony and, oh my gosh, why can't I think of her name? Eleanor, on this sort of like hillside picnic scene, and they're talking very lovingly to each other. And it's a tender scene that I appreciate that the film paused to take a moment to give us something other than just another twist, right? But when they're like, okay, we should pack up and get back to the house, Tony says, well, I'll pack up the picnic basket. You go bring the car around. And she does. And she backs the car up, but she can't stop backing it up. And she ends up going right, dangling over the cliff dramatically. The front like bumper is being held up strictly by a piece of wire from a fence. And then Tony, realizing what happens, goes and he puts a stake down to try and create some more, support to keep the car from going over the cliff. And then we see Eleanor gingerly climbing up over the windshield to get to safety. And there's a wonderful dramatic shot where I'm going to be thinking about this for the rest of my life, where you see the car go down and you're not sure if you're going to see Eleanor like attached to it or just, getting clumps of dirt as she claws her way, just air as she goes down the cliff. But no, she makes it just in time. And it's a wonderful reveal. Like so many of the reveals in this movie, it's smooth, it's surprising, and it's exciting. And I almost stood up and cheered because I didn't want to see her go. I thought that would be very cruel.
A bit much. Well, and when he plants that stake, he actually pulls, like there's a kind of a gap in the earth that gets pulled out. So it's like, part of the bit of land that the car is on starts going over the cliff as well. Again, very suspenseful. But yes, let's circle back to Oliver Reed's performance, because again, how does this guy not get equal billing, if not top billing?
I feel like it was some kind of a marketing ploy. Because the reason I wanted to bring up that car scene is because the immediate aftermath is he's hanging out at the estate with Francoise, and he's kind of like giving her the business. He does not respect her at all, which we'll get back to in a few minutes. But car pulls up downstairs, and he goes to the window and sees a service. I don't know if it was a taxi or whatever. And then Tony and Eleanor get out of the back seat, and his look, he's angry and sick at the same time. He just grabs the curtains and he's like, no. And you're right. When he blows up at people, it's masterful. He almost kills the guy who tells him, well, we can't get you any more. There's no more brandy. I can't get you more brandy, and your tab is just about full. By the way, we can't fill up your car because you're overdrawn on the gas station debt. This guy is a maniac and a paranoiac, I guess, but he's so good at keeping it together until he just can't. And it's great watching him, but we get just enough of this kind of Jekyll and Hyde performance to keep it interesting, instead of like, oh, well, he's going to blow up at somebody again.
Right.
I'm going to go to the bathroom now.
Yeah, right. No. And again, he does have that classic Oliver Reed reserve, wherever keeping the lid is on the pot most of the time. And you just see it kind of like rippling. Every once in a while, it just blows. And, nobody yells quite like Oliver Reed. It's really lovely. As we saw in Curse the Werewolf, when he's like, I'm cursed, you have to lock me up. But yeah, just wonderful. And I was looking at his career. He didn't actually become a big international superstar. He was kind of plugging along. He was still doing, some stuff with Hammer. He did The Devils with Ken Russell in 71. And then I think it was 73 and 74, he did Three Musketeers. And then I feel like he started getting a bigger name above the title type of roles.
Well, I mean, it's a heck of a way to start your career. And I can see why he got attention, because he's so good in this and so frightening. And it's the screenplay and the performance that are constantly keeping us off kilter, because at one point Aunt Harriet says, oh no, he's clinically insane. Like he's been plotting to get his sister locked up, but it's really him who needs the help. And this all comes out when, in my notes, I kept referring to it as a cottage. I don't think that's quite the right word, but on this estate, there's like this back house, and Eleanor frequently hears music and organ music and a little boy singing coming from the back house. And she tells Tony about it. She's like, I thought I was losing my mind, because Tony's like, oh, I hear it too. And Tony goes to investigate. He opens up the door, and sure enough, he sees a figure playing an organ. I can't remember. Did he realize that it was Simon at that point, or was it such a quick glimpse that he couldn't tell who it was initially?
No, we see that it's Simon. We just don't know who the strange figure is next to him that is singing.
Okay. Because it looks like they're dressed sort of in altar boy, traditional gown setup. But then there's a masked killer who shows up.
Oh man.
With this like sickle.
Like a hay hook, I think it is.
A hay hook. That's thank you. I kept thinking of I Know What You Did Last Summer, because that movie's in my
hook
head.
Of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah. So this creepy masked killer starts slashing at Tony and gets him pretty good, and then disappears. And I'm like, wait, I was disappointed in the movie for about 2 minutes. And like, wait, is that the kind of film that we're going to become now? Just a weird slasher? Bring back the twists and the psychology and the interaction between the characters. Fortunately, it just gets richer and richer from here all the way up to the end, including the identity of that killer.
Yeah. Well, and the mystery, I think, right there, when we have our masked killer, like, I mean, on the one hand, you go, well, who else could it be? But I think your first reaction is, who is that?
Yeah.
What, like, we don't think that that's Tony. We don't think that it's a ghost, like it's clearly somebody. And once you do know the identity of it, like the twisted psychology of the whole thing just gets like deeper and more twisted.
Well, it's also because it's a Russian nesting doll of conspiracy there, because yes, you're right. It could only be probably Aunt Harriet because of Roger Ebert's law of the economy of characters. You're this deep into a film, they're not going to introduce someone that you've never seen before as the assailant. Except, maybe you could say it was Keith or something, but even that doesn't make any sense. So it turns out it's Aunt Harriet, and she confesses that she wanted to keep everybody away from this cottage, or whatever you want to call it, because Simon is insane. Turns out that at the very end of the movie, that's not even true. They wanted to keep everybody away from this because of what's behind the organ. And I hate movies that have too many twists, too many things going on, but this movie has about, I don't know, 8, 10 of them. I stopped counting, and they're all wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. And as you were saying, we've got this reveal, but it feels earned once you finally get the reveal. But the mystery around you go, okay, this is what they've been using. And I don't get the sense that Aunt Harriet is in on the plot to make Eleanor crazy. But they've been hearing, this organ presumably for a little while.
Right. And it also, maybe you can help me out with this. If you want to draw attention away from a building that might have a body bricked up in the back, do you play mysterious organ music and have little boy singing?
I wouldn't, but I'm not a paranoiac, so what are you going to
do? That's a good point. I mean, but I don't think we ever get a scene where Aunt Harriet confronts Simon about it, like, you
Right.
better stop that. And Simon's like, if I do, then I won't be able to drive my sister crazy. And
Well, and I get the sense that she was doing it for his sake. Like he needed to not have the guilt.
But I don't know if he feels guilty. That's the thing. There's constantly a back and forth of, is Simon crazy or is he evil? Because with Francoise, she gets wind of some of the stuff that's going on, and she decides to leave. And as she's leaving, she encounters Simon right by this pond, and they kind of fall down into onto the shore, I guess, of it. And I think he drowns her, but it's a very the one criticism I would level at this film is that scene I think was pretty poorly shot, or at least the driving action, because I thought when she's lying down and kind of like in the mud and she's so in love with Simon that she doesn't really care, I thought he was going to like push her face into it and it would sort of gather around her and kind of subsume her. But there's a cut to where we are now looking up at Simon from underneath the water from her point of view.
Yep.
But it almost looked like he had tied a weight around her or something. So she's like kind of floating there. Like she's not sinking away. It's a static shot.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know what happened in that scene. What happened? Can you explain it to
me?
No,
I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think there was a drowning, and I mean, they're right near the edge of the shore. So I don't think it is something where she would just disappear. I think he's just holding her under the water until she drowns.
But he's like, he's almost like laying casually by it. And I think he plops a stone at it.
I think what we're looking at is the eyes, through the eyes of a corpse. Like she's been drowned, and this is the view, is this person who is dead looking up at him. I mean, I think it's an artfully done shot. I don't know that it makes a whole lot of narrative sense, but I thought it was a fun presentation of an idea.
It was. It drove me crazy. Partially because I've been watching The Naked Gun recently, and there's the gag that opens those. You've seen those new movies, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. The police siren gag on the top of the car.
Yep.
Part of what makes it so funny is that it's just the siren or the light. It's not the full car, because it goes to places a car couldn't. Right. I got that feeling with Francoise's death, because from that perspective, he's on the shore and he's
Mhm.
looking down at her from a perspective like if her body's floating, her legs would be much further out. She would almost have to be kind of standing up looking at him because there'd be
You are
no
thinking
room.
about this way too hard.
I know, and that's
Yeah.
what drives me crazy, especially because the fix is so simple. Instead
Mhm.
of having Oliver Reed kind of like lounging on the side, you just have him like have his arms outstretched as if he's holding her down.
Sure.
But again, I'm revising it. I'm armchair directing this movie, which is a terrible habit, but I
Well,
can't escape it because that's how I watch movies.
again, I think this is post-mortem, this viewpoint. I don't think she's struggling. I think the deed has been done at this point.
Right, but my point of that whole like the position of the body is
Yeah.
he should have been upside down. Like
Yes.
her head would have been like over here if he's that close to where her head is, and it
Yes.
doesn't make sense because he's right on the shore. Like
Right.
her legs would be inside the earth.
Had he been upside down, I think that might have sold it a little bit better.
Yes, we solved it. I'm a
Yep,
better
done.
director than
All you got to do is during that scene, when that scene comes on, just flip onto your head or turn your TV over, and and you're golden.
for that 20 seconds. It's like the old
Exactly. If it's going to ruin the movie for 2 minutes, then just get a little gymnastics in your life, and you're good.
it's like the old laser disc days. Wait, I gotta
Mhm.
flip the disc. What?
That's right.
Um, so yeah, Francoise is gone. It's weird because we called Harriet's disguise the killer, but she never actually kills anybody. She is
No,
just a scare tactic.
she assaults. That's about
Right.
as far as she gets.
But then, when Tony he goes to tell Eleanor, "Hey, we're leaving. I figured it out." And he also gives Keith a heads up. He's like, "You've got 12 hours to rectify the books that you've been, stealing from this family." I also love going back earlier. Simon confronts Keith's dad, who is the actual executor of this estate, and he says, "The first thing I do when I get this money in a few weeks is hire the best team of accountants to go over the books and find out how much you've been or how and how much you've been stealing from the family." And the guy's like, "I haven't been stealing
Yeah,
from the
have at
family."
it, pal.
Right. But then, like a moment later, his son catches him in the hallway, like, "Hey, Dad!" And then Simon goes to talk to him, and he's like, "Yeah, I've been stealing from."
Yeah, yeah. Say your dad has not. However, I know
Right.
you've been stealing.
Yeah, it's great. But so Tony is kind of setting all of his affairs in order. He's telling Eleanor to, come away with him, get her stuff ready. Keith, get your books together because something is about to blow up. We don't know exactly what he knows at this point. He goes back to the cottage. He starts unbricking the organ, and behind it is a really creepy and effective shot of the real Tony's corpse, down to like, spiders and a web and everything. And the one glistening eyeball that's kind of staring right at the audience. I'm like, wait, is he alive under there? Is that a mask? But no. Um, there's a struggle. Tony is knocked out, the alive Tony. He wakes up in the kind of the classic fashion, strapped arms behind him to a pillar. Harriet comes in and like starts yelling at him about how he ruined everything. And then she lights the place on fire and then goes to hang out with Simon. Eleanor rushes in, frees Tony. They escape. Simon won't have it, so he rushes in, grabs dead Tony's corpse, but I guess the smoke overcomes them or something because they both collapse onto the ground, and that's how the movie ends. No happy ending for our two heroes of like, gee, wasn't that wild? Now we can elope. It's just that which of the Frankenstein movies do we talk about where Frankenstein and well, there was a couple of them. The one that where they die together out on the lawn, or the
Well, Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed is where they're on the lawn and he picks him up and carries him back into the burning house.
yes, I was thinking about that watching this scene. It is just so kind of poetic and messed up, but also kind of sad because again, I'm still straddling the fence of was Simon evil or just like incredibly disturbed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you left out the another big reveal. Well, not even so much. Well, it's a reveal to Eleanor, um, because Eleanor reveals her true feelings, and like she and Tony are looking face to face at each other. lovingly. And then, well, it goes a little bit beyond brother and sister because they have a romantic kiss. Now, of course, for Tony, this is fine because Tony's not actually Tony, and he's got a thing for her. But she, Eleanor, like thinks, oh no, I'm committing this terrible sin of incest. I'm going to go run up to my bedroom. I think she sees like the scissors. She's going to, end her life with them. And that's when he goes and reveals to her, he's like, I'm not actually your brother. So that part's okay. The fact that I'm not your brother, that may not be that may be a problem in a different way.
And that's also kind of a twist on a twist, like just piggybacking off of each other. But that scene where she runs up to her room and she's got her wrist up, I think she's just kind of distraught, but then she looks at it and she makes that connection, like she sees her wrist. Yeah. And then she looks over at the kind of the vanity and there's the scissors there, and she goes to reach for them, and immediately Tony's hand clamps down onto it. Just great filmmaking. What I love about this movie, among between the characters, the acting, the story, and the filmmaking, is it's a complete package. It could just be a boring, people sitting in a parlor like, well, I did this to you, and you didn't know that I did this to you. Well, you didn't know that I did this to you behind your back. It's a very driven, forward momentum, kind of fast-paced movie that has a lot going on, and you almost can't believe that it's an hour and 20 minutes, like I said at the top.
Absolutely. And this again, Francis is early in his directing career. He was a very noted cinematographer. He'd done he'd done The Innocents, he'd done Saturday Night and Sunday Morning, he'd done Room at the Top. He'd also been the camera operator for Look Back in Anger and Moby Dick. Beat the Devil. So he was like, he was a go-to guy for a long time in terms of who you want behind the camera. So to have him like lending his, he's in charge now. He gets to set, where the shots are going to be. But he took he moved into the director's chair in 64, 63, 64 with this, and did not come back. You rarely see a director, after they've been a cinematographer, go back to being a cinematographer. But Freddie Francis goes back to being a cinematographer, and he shoots Elephant Man for David Lynch, along with Dune and The Straight Story. The Straight Story was the last film he did. Again, just working as a cinematographer. He won his Oscar for Glory. He's the cinematographer for Glory. So, he was somebody who directed and then came back. You'll see him directing for Amicus and for Hammer. So he's just kind of a wonderful, unique personality, because again, I think it's very rare. I don't know of too many other DPs who go to become directors and then go back to being a DP for a while.
I wonder if that's, just a function of age. Sometimes it's nice to just not be in charge of everything. But no, wow, Glory. I love that movie, and I also love the way it looks and flows. That's great. I never saw The Straight Story. That's a blind spot I needed to tick off.
Yeah, he didn't do all of Lynch's films. Right. I think those three are the ones that that he'd worked on. But yeah, he's a 2-time Oscar winner as a cinematographer, but also a great guy in the director's chair.
Well, one of the things I appreciate here is that I mistakenly thought I was going to be in for another Psycho knockoff, just because, we've kind of talked about a few of these, pretty good and pretty varied in terms of, like, I don't think we've talked about a lot of direct knockoffs of Psycho, or at least ones that feel like, maybe there was a zeitgeist and that was an excuse to make these films, which might not have gotten made if Psycho hadn't been such a big hit, but they have their own voice. I feel like this is a continuation of that. And I was completely blown away. I did not expect this movie. And I mean, the first time you watched this, was it for this, or had you seen it before?
I'd seen it one time before. Again, that's why I was like, of the black and white thrillers, which one do we pick? I feel like this one has a lot going for it. I really like The Snorkel. I like Maniac, but this one has, enough, I think, plot going on. And again, I just remember Oliver Reed being who to watch.
Um, I gotta ask, when you first watched this, were all the twists surprises, or did you see anything coming? Because I don't know if it's because I didn't eat lunch or I'm tired or whatever, but I was just surprised by everything, and I thought I had my brain turned on. Maybe the movie's just that good.
Yeah, I don't I mean, I hadn't seen it for a while, so I can't say I remembered any of the twists. And watching it this time, I was like, "Oh wow, I don't remember where this is going." I remember there's a creepy mask. I remember there's a big reveal at the end. I'm pretty sure that, that's not actually Simon. But yeah, it was a fun one to revisit for sure.
And as far as the performance that we haven't talked about a lot, Alexander Davian as Tony Ashby, the live
Hmm.
one, um, I really liked his performance here. He did seem a little bit kind of had like a Rod Serling quality to him, and he doesn't have as much to do in terms of like a big performance as his co-stars,
Right.
but I thought he played it really well as a character who was coming into the situation playing himself off as sort of a long lost kind of a ghostly figure. And then there's that also the layer of he's a con man and then he has to become a hero. All very subtle differences in the performance, but a really nuanced one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like him I think he's kind of forced to play him a little bit as a cipher. Like we don't see him reveal too much. And I think that's just kind of the nature of the role, is that we can't see too much. We want to, and also he's writing that line, right, of hero and cad. He is in fact in there gaslighting people, who probably don't need to be gaslit, uh, and all in the service of the almighty dollar. But he seems to be coming from a place of righteousness, because I think when Simon is presented as such a cad, that you're like, well, I can't root for that guy. So here's somebody you can root for, even though, as you find out, he's no angel either.
Yeah. Oh no, I want to go back and watch this movie again, like soon. But yeah, also as we'd said before, I feel like this is ripe for a remake. I don't know if they would need to put any kind of like a new fresh spin on it or add like 13 more twists to it. I think you could just cast this with modern actors. It's a very kind of intimate kind of countryside drama. Although, I don't know, would the internet or modern technology get in the way of this kind of story at all?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it would be fun. They could just make it a period piece. You know, they don't. It doesn't have to be updated. I think it's solid enough as it is, and would play well in that kind of remote British countryside type of setting.
Yeah.
I was looking
Um,
at the was looking at Alexander Davian's filmography, and it looks like he had a part in Plague of the Zombies as well. I don't remember his character, but again, he is kind of nondescript. So it would be interesting to go back and see Plague of the Zombies again and be like, ah, there he is. I recognize that guy.
yeah. Also, real quick, Keith had mentioned that there were a couple other candidates that he had thought about for this kind of infiltration role, and it helped that our Tony, whose real name we never get to know. It'd be funny if it
Right.
was actually Tony. Um, that it helped they looked like him, like an 8 years on version of the kid who'd killed himself,
Right.
but he had this other kind of quality to him. Do you think those other people were let in on the scheme, or was Keith just kind of like sussing them out? Because are
I,
there other bodies in that swamp?
I would like to think that until he committed, he hadn't tipped his hand as to who he was going to, let in on the scheme. I just think it's funny that he was able to find somebody who did resemble Tony extrapolated out, 8 years. I was like, because you do see people look at him like, oh, that is Tony. It's like, wow, you must have worked. You won the jackpot in terms of finding somebody to conspire with.
On top of that, if Tony died when he was 15 and he's supposed to be 23 now, I don't know that I buy this guy as being a 23-year-old.
Yeah.
And on top of that, as the dad of a 15-year-old, I can say that 15-year-olds and 23-year-olds look very different. So I don't know exactly how you can extrapolate that. Maybe. But yeah, so I guess any final thoughts on our Paranoiac?
I just want to throw out one more thing. Alexander Davion was the voice of Space Captain Greg in the movie Thunderbirds Are Go, which is the Thunderbirds Are Go is what Team America World Police is riffing on.
Yeah.
With the marionettes and everything. So apparently he was one of the voices of the original cast in the movie Thunderbirds Are Go.
Wow.
So
that
one more cool thing that he did.
That's truly random trivia.
It is. I mean, I love, thank goodness for IMDb. I love it.
There is let's see. Going back to the dialogue real quick before we wrap up, because there's a couple of great lines in here. Harriet, when she first encounters Simon in the film, she says, "Where have you been?" "I've been drinking. Now I'm going to drink some more." Yeah, there's something about does Simon get all the best lines in this movie? I feel like this is one of those rare screenplays that feels like it was written by a person with a singular idea, but not a singular voice. The ability to, like, not everybody is as quippy and catty as Simon is. They save all the juicy stuff for him.
Well, I'm trying to think of who else could have that kind of wry commentary. He is the one who's kind of at a remove and is pretty mercenary, is a little bit of a sociopath. And so, like, he's going to say things that nobody else would say.
But there's a difference, I think, in terms of like modern screenwriting where you have someone with a singular voice, like a Tarantino or a Kevin Smith, where you watch their movies, like all their characters are way too brainy and talking to each other. The stoner is the same as the guy running the movie palace or whatever. Whereas this, it is just nice to see that, this is the guy that not only for the performance, but whenever Simon shows up in a scene, you're in for something a little bit different than which just, again, that two-hander of Eleanor and Tony on the picnic. Yeah. All right. Well, AC, again, another great one in the books. I'm a little scared about next month, or 2 months from now. We're going to be back in September talking about when dinosaurs ruled the earth. What am I in for?
Well, there'll be dinosaurs.
Okay.
If you remember 1 million BC, it was inspired by the success of that movie. And so you're going to get more cave people, specifically lovely cave ladies, running around in fur bikinis. And you're going to get some stop motion dinosaurs.
Okay.
And if you have a problem with that, you should probably let me know now, because it's really just that. That's what you're going to get.
How is it short?
I mean, it's as long as it needs to be.
Well, here's the thing. I swore off the Jurassic Park franchise or Jurassic World with this last movie. I'm like, they're going to make more of these and I'm not going to watch them because I'm tired of it. But it's because they kind of forgot what that whole series is about.
Sure.
I will gladly watch When Dinosaurs Rule the Earth if it's just what you said. And if it's short, if it's like 80 minutes and that's what we get, awesome.
I don't think, again, with your expectations properly managed, it's not Raquel Welch. I think it's Victoria Vetri is our lead. But she's a lovely lass and she makes for a fetching lead. And I think she and at least one dinosaur have a fun little bonding moment, and not in a weird way, in a cute, like puppy dog way. That's my memory.
Okay. All right. Because the other thing would be kind of fun too to see, maybe. But all right. Well, AC, tell us what you've got going on. Give yourself the old plug-a-roo.
Well, we've been doing the Lord's work over at Horror 101 with Dr. AC, honoring significant anniversaries. We just talked about Motel Hell. We talked about Maniac. We talked about Repulsion. We've got City of the Living Dead, aka The Gates of Hell, on the horizon, and Peeping Tom will be premiering this Friday. So we're keeping up with that. You can find us over on YouTube. You can also listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your listens, if you just want to hear the yammer and not necessarily see the faces.
But why wouldn't you?
Actually, it's a very different experience, I think, to listen to the show versus watching the show. So I recommend people try them both out and see which one they like best. But you can find Horror 101 Dr. AC just searching on Spotify and YouTube. I think the link's down below in the description.
Oh, they are, sir. All right. Well, AC, thanks again for recommending that we watch this. I know you said there were some other contenders in the bunch, but this is now up in that pantheon of not only favorite Hammer films, but just favorite movies. Because, folks, I know we've spoiled the hell out of it, and if you haven't seen it, well, shame on you for getting this far. But seek it out, watch Paranoiac, and then be forever disappointed in the direct that's coming out in cinemas.
Wow. I'm in the comments. I'll put a list of the other black and white thrillers in addition to Scream of Fear and Paranoia, because there's only so much time. But I think a lot of them are worth checking out.
All right. Well, AC of Horror 101 with Dr. AC, thank you very much. Thank you out there for watching and for liking and subscribing and ringing the bell for notifications, as you are about to do right now. See how I synchronized all that?
Smash it.
Yes. And until next time, folks, whenever that is, whatever that is, thank you very much and take care. Hey everyone, Ian here. I know, long time no see, but if you like the video you just watched, feel free to subscribe to Kicking the Seat right here, and also check out the playlist and recommended video right here. Thanks for watching.